Hi there. Welcome to ACE Anatomy. I'm Dr. Divya Dessa. A warm welcome to all my returning viewers and those who are new to my channel. Hit the subscribe and the bell and let's start right away. The interior of the skull is divided into three fossae known as anterior, middle and posterior cranial fossae. These fossae are in a step-like manner. Let's begin with anterior cranial fossa. The anterior cranial fossa is formed by the parts of frontal bone, ethmoid bone and sphenoid bone. The anterior cranial fossa is bounded anteriorly and laterally by the frontal bone. Posteriorly, it is bounded by the posterior border of lesser wing of sphenoid, the anterior margin of sulcus chiasmatis, and the anterior clinoid process. The floor in the median region is formed by the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone anteriorly, and posteriorly we have the anterior part of superior surface of body of sphenoid, which is called the jugum sphenoidum. The floor in the lateral region is formed anteriorly by the orbital plates of frontal bone and posteriorly by the lesser wing of sphenoid. Now let's look at the features of anterior cranial fossa. This is the frontal crest. So it is the median crest in the anterior wall of the fossa and it provides attachment to falx cerebri. Behind that we have the crista galli, which is an upward tooth-like projection. And in the midline, next we have the jugum sphenoidum. Its anterior margin meets the posterior margin of cribriform plate and posteriorly it is limited by sulcus chiasmatis. So this jugum sphenoidum, it separates the anterior cranial fossa from the two sphenoidal sinuses. Laterally, we have the orbital plate of frontal bone. So each of these orbital plates separates the anterior cranial fossa from the corresponding orbit. And it also shows these impressions for cerebral gyri. It supports the orbital surface of frontal lobe of the cerebrum. Medially, here it covers the superior surface of ethmoidal labyrinth, and posteriorly it meets the anterior margin of the lesser wing of sphenoid. In the anterior cranial fossa, we see the foramen caecum and the foramina of cribriform plate. For further details on the foramen caecum, you can listen to my video on the foramina of skull, the link for which is given in the description box. Let's now look at the middle cranial fossa. The middle cranial fossa is formed by the parts of sphenoid bone, the temporal bone and the parietal bone. The middle cranial fossa is bounded anteriorly by the posterior border of lesser wing of sphenoid, the anterior border of sulcus chiasmatis and the anterior clinoid process. Posteriorly, it is bounded by the posterior clinoid process, the dorsum sellae and the superior border of petrous temporal bone. Laterally, on each side, it is bounded by the greater wing of sphenoid, the anterior inferior angle of parietal bone and the squamous part of temporal bone. The floor in the central part is formed by the body of the sphenoid and laterally it is formed on each side by the greater wing of sphenoid, the squamous part of temporal bone and the anterior surface of petrous temporal bone. Now let's look at the features of middle cranial fossa. The sulcus chiasmatis is a transversely running groove just behind the jugum sphenoidum. It is named after its relation with the optic chiasma, which actually never comes in contact with it but lies posterior superior to the sulcus. The sulcus chiasmatis leads laterally into optic canals. Then we have the tuberculum sellae. It is an elevation just behind the sulcus chiasmatis. The middle clinoidal processes are the lateral prominent ends of this tuberculum sellae. The sella turcica is a hollow space behind the tuberculum sellae. It is shaped like a Turkish saddle, and therefore it is called as sella turcica. The hypophyseal fossa is the deepest part in it, this here, and it lodges the pituitary gland. The sphenoidal air sinus is present below the floor of this hypophyseal fossa. This is the dorsum sellae. So it is the back of the Turkish saddle. So it is a square plate bone behind the sella turcica. The superior angles of the dorsum sellae, they project laterally into posterior clinoid processes. The diaphragma sellae, that is the dural fold, it is attached to the upper margin of dorsum sellae. And the anterior ends of this attached margin of tentorium cerebelli is attached to this posterior clinoid process. The carotid sulcus is a shallow groove on each side of the body of the sphenoid. It lodges the cavernous sinus, which encloses the third part of internal carotid artery. This carotid sulcus, it extends posteriorly up to the foramen lacerum, and here the posterior end, at this posterior end, the lateral margin projects backward into a tongue-shaped lingula, and this lingula lies over the posterior opening of pterygoid canal. Now we will look at the features of anterior surface of petrous temporal bone. So here there is an impression which is called the trigeminal impression for the trigeminal ganglia. There is a ridge which limits this trigeminal impression posteriorly, and the roof of the internal acoustic meatus is a depressed area behind this ridge. Arcuate eminence here is a prominent elevation behind the second depression, and it is produced by the superior semicircular canal. Area anterolateral to this trigeminal impression, it forms the roof of anterior part of the carotid canal. And area anterolateral to this arcuate eminence forms the roof of the vestibule and the beginning of facial canal. There is a thin plate of bone between the squamous temporal and these two, that is the arcuate eminence and the trigeminal impression here, which is called the tegment tympani. And this tegment tympani, it forms the roof of mastoid antrum, middle ear, and the canal for tensor tympani. A hiatus lateral to this arcuate eminence leads into a groove, and that is for the greater petrosal nerve, which runs towards this foramen lacerum. And there is one more groove present, which is for the lesser petrosal nerve, and that will run towards the foramen ovale. The superior border of the petrous temporal bone is grooved by the superior petrosal sinus. The margins of this groove, they provide attachment to tentorium cerebelli. And it is crossed by the trigeminal nerve here near the apex of this petrous temporal. And in the lateral part of the fossa, we also see the impressions for the middle meningeal vessels, and the depressions produced by the gyri or gyri of temporal lobe of the cerebral hemisphere are also seen in this fossa. There are many important foramens and canals in the middle cranial fossa. We have the optic canal, the foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, foramen lacerum, foramen spinosum, the carotid canal in the middle cranial fossa. You can listen to the details of this foramen and the structures passing through in my video on the foramina of skull. Let's look at some of the venous sinuses present in the middle cranial fossa. Along the lesser wing of the sphenoid, we have the sphenoparietal sinus. The cavernous sinus is located in the carotid sulcus on the side of the body of the sphenoid. We have the middle meningeal vein in the floor of this middle cranial fossa, and superior petrosal sinus along the superior border of the petrous temporal bone. We have the anterior intercavernous sinus at the tuberculum sellae, the posterior intercavernous sinus at the dorsum sellae, and the petrosquamous sinus at the junction of the petrous and squamous part of temporal bone. Now let's move on to the posterior cranial fossa. The posterior cranial fossa is the largest and deepest cranial fossa, and it lodges the cerebellum, pons and the medulla. The bones seen in the posterior cranial fossa are mainly the occipital bone and parts of temporal and parietal bone. The boundaries of the posterior cranial fossa is formed anteriorly by the posterior clinoid process, the dorsum sellae, and the superior border of the petrous temporal bone. Posteriorly, it is bounded by the squamous part of occipital bone. Laterally, it is bounded by the mastoid part of the temporal bone and mastoid angle of the parietal bone. The floor is formed by the basisphenoid and basiocciput, the posterior surface of petrous temporal bone, the mastoid part of temporal bone, the posterior-inferior angle of parietal bone, and the squamous part of occipital bone. Let's look at the features of posterior cranial fossa. The clevus is the sloping surface in front of foramen magnum. It is formed by the superior surface of basilar part of occipital bone and posterior part of the body of sphenoid and dorsum sellae. It supports the pons and the medulla and is related to basilar plexus of veins and basilar artery. The petro-occipital fissure is the junction between the clevus and the petrous temporal. It is grooved by the inferior petrosal sinus. The internal occipital protuberance is situated opposite the external occipital protuberance and is related to the confluence of dural venous sinuses, where the superior sagittal, the occipital sinus and the straight sinus meet and transverse sinus begins. So here we can see these grooves which are formed by the transverse sinus. Internal occipital crest is the midline crest between the internal occipital protuberance and the foramen magnum. The falx cerebelli is attached to it. The cerebellar hemispheres occupies this deep fossa on each side of this internal occipital crest. The Wormian fossa is the midline fossa at the lower end of the internal occipital crest adjacent to the foramen magnum. It is related to the inferior vermis of the cerebellum. The jugular tubercle is medial to the lower margin of the jugular foramen here. It is a rounded elevation and so called the jugular tubercle. So it is located anterosuperior to the internal opening of the hypoglossal canal. So here we have the hypoglossal canal. So it is situated anterosuperior to it. It is grooved by the 9th, 10th and 11th cranial nerves, that is glossopharyngeal, vagus and accessory nerve. The foramina seen in the posterior cranial fossa are the internal acoustic meatus, jugular foramen, the hypoglossal canal and the foramen magnum. You can listen about this foramen in my video, the link of which is given in the description box. The dural venous sinuses present in the posterior cranial fossa are the transverse sinus in the transverse sulcus, the sigmoid sinus in the sigmoid sulcus, the inferior petrosal sinus along the petrous-occipital fissure, basilar venous plexus or the clevus, and occipital sinus or the internal occipital crest, which is lodged where it is lodged within the falx cerebelli. And there you have it, the cranial fossae in all their complexity. From the anterior fossa cradle or frontal lobes to the posterior fossa housing the brainstem and cerebellum, Each plays a critical role in supporting and protecting our brain. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more high-yielding anatomy content. See you in the next one.